to another episode of the Whiskey Row History Show. I'm Prescott Constable Ron Williams, the Yavapai County Constable for Prescott Precinct. With me is my co-host, Bradley G. Courtney, known as Brad to me.
Yep.
Now, we have a fun episode today. We are talking about the Great Fire of 1900, the definitive fire.
Fires are fun.
Fires are fun. Burning things are
fun with
cool.
fire.
Fire. But fire is cool. And fire is hot, actually.
Yeah.
Fire is hot.
Real
I learned that when I was like 2. But no, we were talking about the Great Fire of 1900. It was the definitive fire of Prescott. It made Prescott what Prescott is today.
Pivotal event in Prescott's history.
So, and I will say, you are the foremost expert on the Great Fire of 1900. You wrote a book on it.
And the only one. Yep.
The only expert.
No one had done it. So, yeah, actually, I'll go ahead and say this because the first book was, no one had written a history about Whiskey Row, a complete history, an academic look at it. But when I did that, I actually started with the Great Fire in my research because I knew something about it. But as I was looking at it, I go, man, I got to go all the way back. So yeah, this was I'd say in total, this book, because, there was another book before it, probably took 9 years. That was 2012, I think, when I started, 2019 when the book came out. So it took quite a while. A lot of things happened in between there. So this book was a long time coming.
And it's an amazing read. I know when it did come out, I sat down on the couch and I think I knocked it out in like 3 hours.
I had good editing.
It was a fast read.
I paid good money for a good editor.
And it paid off.
Sutone, thank you.
So, the fire, in brief, just give me the fire in numbers. How many buildings? How long did it burn? How many people died?
Nobody. Oh, we'll get to that. The part about nobody died. Yeah, we'll get to that. So 70 buildings went down at least. It lasted about 5 hours, and it was a crowded 5 hours. It was the most crowded 5 hours in Prescott's history. And the total loss went from $1 million to $1.5 million, which at that time was astronomical.
That's a lot of money for 1900.
$55 million today, and that was a few years ago so inflation is probably $57 million today.
But no, it's definitely $50-60 million in today's damage.
It was awful.
That's a lot. I mean, how many blocks do you think it covered?
So it started in below Goodwin. It was called the Scopel block. So it was a half a block where it started. Took out what the newspaper called the Badlands, which was today's Montezuma Whiskey Row, Block 13, Block 100, they call it. But so we had Whiskey Row on the east side of Montezuma, and parallel across the way was the red light district. So
off of Granite Street.
So that whole block there, they called it the Badlands, and they even said that in the paper. The Badlands are gone. So it took out that one. It took out the north above Gurley, took that one out, and then it turned right and took out from Gurley to Willis along Cortez. So it was 3.5 blocks, maybe.
Okay, yeah. I was sitting here counting on my fingers as you rattled those off, and I got up to like almost 5 blocks or 5 partial blocks.
Yeah, it was. It wiped out the downtown district. Some things are still here. There's a couple buildings still here that survived it. The courthouse, it was a different courthouse, but it survived. It was right in the middle of the whole thing, along the plaza-facing side of Cortez there that goes along from Gurley to Goodwin. That was spared, and there's a story behind that. We'll get to that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's extensive. I mean, it was obviously devastating for Prescott. You're talking multiple blocks, millions of dollars in damage. You're talking scores of buildings.
And the insurance, most of the owners had insurance, but when I looked at what they got back, it was like a fraction of what the damage that was actually done. They got very little back. Let's say $50,000 for $250,000 of damage. It kind of went along those. And some people didn't have any insurance at all, but it was amazing to me how they rebuilt with so little insurance money coming back to them, but they rebuilt bigger and better. And we inherited what they did. What we see today, downtown Prescott, is a direct result of that.
So what we see today as Whiskey Row was not what Whiskey Row looked like in before June of 1900.
Not at all. Not at all.
So let's think about Whiskey Row. Let's discuss Whiskey Row before the fire just briefly. I mean, it wasn't just Dodge City with wood
Yeah.
buildings, was it? I mean, there was brick buildings, there were stone
Yeah,
buildings.
and that was the common theme that I got from that. It was always, it was a town made of wood. And I even kind of in the first book I kind of leaned on that, the Prescott started in wood, it died in wood. But when I looked at it, and we'll look at some pictures that we'll show, it was transitioning to brick. There was all this big call for brick. If there were other fires, and when for instance, the palace actually was on Goodwin Street. It burned down and it moved to Montezuma Street, and that's when they changed to brick and stone. But
And
it
that was
about
the
50-50.
fireproof palace,
The
as it was called,
fireproof, yeah.
because it was brick.
It was,
Brick and metal reinforcements.
some of it made it, but
Well, half of a wall made
yeah,
it.
you'll see some photographs we got. It's just amazing. But that brick held. I mean, it dropped,
Mhm.
but some of that brick you see today is survived the fire. You go in the palace, sit in the back, you'll see darkened brick, black brick. Those were bricks that survived that enormous, intense fire.
But so the town was transitioning. It wasn't just a Hollywood back movie set with just wood buildings. There were brick buildings. Like I said, the palace was a brick building.
Right.
They claimed to be fireproof. The Burke Hotel
Yeah.
advertised themselves in the newspaper as fireproof.
And we'll show that. The first time I saw that ad, I was sitting there in the Charlotte Hall Archives in front of the microphone reader, and there was a fellow historian beside me. His name was Tom Collins, and I got to that, and I read, "Only fireproof hotel," and I just started laughing. He goes, "What you laughing at?" I go, "I know the punchline. I know what happened to that only fireproof hotel." So, they advertised it. I guess made people feel safe. But
And we won't go into it on this episode, but that advertisement for the only fireproof hotel also had some other questionable advertisements, claims it made.
yeah, a little bit some racism there that
Yeah.
was just blatant. I mean, it was
Blatant,
out there.
yeah. But anyway, so we had transitioning to brick buildings. They're claiming they're fireproof. I mean, I guess they believed it. They said they were fireproof. They believed it.
Yeah.
So
Hotel Burke was enormous. It was a big 3-story building. It was hard to imagine that a fire could take that down. It really
it's
was.
very. I mean, I've seen pictures of the
Yeah.
the original building. We'll be throwing one up here eventually.
We got a picture of it burning, which is
it's-
amazing.
I mean, it's a 3-story heavy duty brick and stone building with all this Gothic architecture on it
Yeah.
and a big cupola on top.
Yeah, it was gaudy. It was
very gaudy, but it
yeah.
was huge. It was a monstrosity. It was huge.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would looking at that, I'd believe it's fireproof.
Yeah, I would too. But the fire was so intense, and we're going to actually show a photograph, maybe a
Yeah.
couple of
So-
that.
So anyway, that's Whiskey Row. Partially wood, partially brick.
Yeah.
It's claiming to be fireproof. People, most people have, or some people have fire insurance because they know it's always a risk. And then July 14th of 1900 rolls around. It's a Saturday.
Hmm.
What about the weather? I mean, what was that July like? Do we know?
It was a hot day, but the biggest factor in that was that, and it reminds me of what we're going through today, except we had a good rain a few days ago. But it was a severe drought that had gone on for like 5 years, and it was so bad that the city put out an edict. You could only water your flowers between, your garden between 7 and 8, and if you didn't do that, if you didn't follow that, they would you'd lose your water rights. But it was so bad, and there was
So they had water restrictions in
Yeah.
Prescott in 1900.
yeah, I mean,
So much for global warming.
but that's another story right there. Yeah, it was very dry, and the night of July 14th, the monsoon hadn't come yet. They kept waiting for it.
Kind of like this year.
Yeah, and it finally came actually sooner than this year. It finally came in late July, but they kept waiting for it to rain. And the other part of that too was there was an issue with the streets. The streets were dirt, And ironically, in that winter, it was exceptionally wet. So, but it didn't take care of the drought. But it was so wet that when the wagons went along Montezuma and other roads there, it was creating these ruts.
Mhm.
So there was an issue with the city council. Do we take care of the streets, or do we work on, we're short on water, do we work on that? They chose to work on the streets, and I think they probably regretted that,
So they chose the immediate
right.
perceived problem of our streets are all rutted out and ruined, as
Our-
opposed to the potential problem.
Yeah.
Well, we may not have enough water if there's a fire.
Yeah, town won't burn. That stuff doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen, exactly. So tell me about the night of July 14th, Saturday night, big night on Whiskey Row, I'm sure,
Yeah.
party time. What happens? What brings about this fire?
So it was actually, Saturdays were busy always, but this particular Saturday was just exceptionally busy. And this quote has been attributed to George Ruffner, and it might have been him, but he was not sheriff at the time. But someone said, it was probably George Ruffner, and said, everybody was having such a good time. He said, and to make arrests for the drunks, you'd have to put like a big dome around the, I forgot the actual words, the whole town, just arrest the whole town.
You'd have to put a
Yeah.
a lid on the entire town and just claim everybody's arrested.
It was partying time, and there's stories of people were out getting ice cream, and they didn't want to stay in their houses, so they were getting out the plaza. And
So it's a
pick up ice
weekend.
cream.
It's hot.
Miners were
It's
in.
been dry.
Yeah.
You have all the saloons. You have ice cream parlors.
Soda fountains.
Yeah, I
That
mean
kind of
it's a
thing.
functioning town.
Yeah, it was. They were having a good time that night.
And what happens?
So we'll go back to the actual place where it started. So there was and we'll put this up with the photographs. There was a block of buildings. They call it the Scopel block. So the Scopel, it was the Grandview House, and some people called it the Scopel Hotel because it was Ferdinand Scopel, Italian man, owned it. But it was right where you might remember there used to be a place there called Colt's Grill.
Kind of, sort of, yeah. I remember it got raided.
I couldn't go to lunch that day.
Yeah, I ruined our lunch plans.
But it was right there, and something else was coming in. But it was right there, and then there was it went south. So there was the Grandview House, there was the OK Annex, there was a building in between that was one story, and then the OK Lodge was miners' house. I think it was called the OK Lodge. Was
OK Lodging House, I believe.
I think it was. In lodging houses, we should say, is lodging houses were the cheapest form of lodging.
Yeah,
it was a room.
it's more than a hotel, but it's less than an apartment.
Yeah.
You're basically renting
A bed and a room.
a bed in a very small room for long-term or intermediate-term lodging.
So in this instance, some miners had come in, and they rented one room was $1. So there was 4 of them. They paid 25 cents each to rent this room.
Was there 4 beds in the room?
Must have been, or they're sleeping on the floor or something. That was pretty common. But these guys were partying. They were on Whiskey Row partying. They came back to their room. It was getting dark. It was 9:30, 10 o'clock or so, and they carried around. The miners carried around these. They're called miners' candlestick holders, and they were used in the mines, of course, to create light. And we'll show a picture of it. But they were designed to jab into the wall, and then there was a place where the candle was held, and it would burn down and fall to the ground. They actually had miners' candlesticks holders that were designed to get snuffed out, and they thought that was a pretty cool idea until the miners would stick those into the wall, and they're in the mine, but they got busy. The candle would snuff out, and then they're in complete darkness. So they preferred the candle to fall through. They could have used a one that snuffed out, but they were partying, and they came back to the room, couldn't see. They stuck a miner's candlestick in the wall.
In the wall.
In the wooden wall. That was the only way.
You're not getting your security deposit back on that one, I think.
Yeah, and I bet you there were probably holes already.
Maybe.
It was actually called the miners' lodging house to some people. It was a place where miners went, and
So they drove the spike in the wall and put the candle in it.
and they were drinking, and there was a bar called the Sellers Saloon, at the bottom. It wasn't actually underground, but it was the bottom floor, and it kind of seemed like it was underground, like the point,
Yeah.
And they left the candle burning and forgot about it. Pretty soon,
Well, time flies when you're drinking beer.
yeah, they were in the cellar saloon, and they hear the fire alarm, which was a steam siren, I think they called it, and it was called Old Mockingbird, and it started making its noise, whatever. They're like, oh, I wonder what happened. Well, it was their room was on fire, and actually the owner, Ferdinand Scopel, actually took a courier reporter, and wherever they were, they pointed to a guy and goes, "That's the guy that did it right there." And what was odd about this? Not odd. There's a story about this, but they found out who started the fire. That was a little item, a little blurb on the third page. Oh, by the way,
Joe started it.
And they pointed to the guy. They said his beer was a $1.5 million bill. Was
his
beer? Was it worth it? And
they actually commented on that.
Actually, yeah, that's we could put that up there.
Yeah,
but
$1.5 million beer.
Beer, was it worth it to the guy? And
apparently for him it was. I mean, he didn't pay it.
Yeah, so
he left somebody else holding the tab on that.
So
one.
People debate how the fire started. Some say it was a lantern, but that never happened. That was debunked real quick. So
just so that everybody who's watching or listening can get a good idea of, we're talking about the 100 block of the 200 block of South Montezuma.
Probably was the 200,
which starts at the corner of
Carlton
and Montezuma, and then goes down a block or two.
Yeah,
and now it's that's where Whiskey River Tavern is.
Right.
And where the old Colt's Grill used to be.
And the Whiskey River Tavern, by the way, that was approximately where the fire started. That's where the OK Lodging House was.
That's exactly where the OK Lodging House was.
Yeah, and I've
so
talked
that we
to
know
him
the
about
fire
that,
started where Whiskey River Tavern is today. And I mean, no, I've seen pictures of it. And OK, it's funny. Everybody thinks, oh, the OK Corral. But OK was a very common byline name.
Yeah.
And we had in Prescott, we had the OK Store.
Yeah.
We had the OK Lodging House. Obviously, Tombstone had the OK Corral. It was a very common. It's like the Acme of the 60s, I guess.
Yeah, and what's funny about this is, so Bert Lee was the first one he was the foreman of the hose company called the OK Company. They were called OK. So
the OK Hose Company?
Yeah, Bert Lee was the foreman of the OK Hose Company, or I don't know if it was called a company, but the OK Hose guys.
Hose guys, hosers?
Those guys. And he worked at the OK store. And during the fire, he went to the OK Lodging House to try to put it out. And we'll get to that story.
But things did not turn out okay.
And at one point, it wasn't okay. It was far from okay. But I actually remember in my research, it was brief, but there was an OK Corral in Prescott.
Was there really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I don't think it was I don't think it lasted very long. But I remember going, wow, look at that.
The OK Lodging House with the miner with his mining candlestick stuck in the wall starts the fire.
Mm-hmm.
It consumes the OK Lodging House and the next door OK Annex.
And I'll just go back a little bit.
Yeah.
So Bert Lee that we just talked about heard the siren. He gets his guys. He picks up the hose cart, and his men were coming in that direction. The hose house was near Granite and Gurley, somewhere on one of those corners. They take it and they get stuck. Granite Creek was dry and very sandy, and the cart got stuck in the bed of Granite Creek, and a horse came by. They lassoed it and pulled it out, and then they go behind. Everybody knows where that alley is behind Whiskey River Tavern and all that. They went that way. They went into the building. And what they saw was people asked what caught on fire. What they saw, what Bert Lee saw and testified to, was the candle dropped through and fell into a bed. The bed lit on fire, and they saw the flames going up the wall.
So the foreman or the fire chief of the OK Hose Company, or whatever they end up calling themselves, I'm saying the hose company.
The
OK Company. he actually entered the burning building, went up to the source of the fire when it was, starting to really catch on. He
Right.
actually saw the miner's candle on the bed engulfed in flames.
And he was real detailed about it. It came through. You never saw that in the papers. He told it to a historian named Pat Savage, who wrote it in the book. But he said they came up, and they saw the bed on fire. They had the hose with them. They yelled the hydrant man. His name was Martin Testori. He was another Italian guy. They told him to hook it up and let it go, and they did. But the mains were dry. And so he said about 3 feet of water came out, and then some mud came out like pancake batter, and they just got frustrated and left. They went to fight the fire the other way.
So that's one thing I did not realize until I was prepping for this episode, and I was getting the photos ready for this episode. There's a picture, and it will come up here in a little bit when we get to that point. There's a picture of the Union Saloon, and one of the men outside of the Union Saloon is standing with his foot on a fire hydrant. I did not realize that Prescott had fire hydrants in 1900.
Yeah, I don't think I did either. I remember thinking about that, but they were hooked to the water main. So here's a story I want to tell, because this didn't show up until years later. So the city water engineer, his name was John Love, and he heard the siren. He was doing something else over north on probably Cortez and Gurley, because when he heard the siren, he jumped on his wagon. It was pulled by a old white horse that was well known around town, and he comes screaming up to Gurley, takes a right, and then down Montezuma to wherever the reservoir was. And according to this guy, his name was I think it was Bill Fitzgerald. He said John Love went up to the reservoir, released the water into the mains, and stayed up there, but the firemen didn't realize it because Bert Lee had already tried it. So they thought the water mains were.
So because they didn't have radios, obviously in 1900, they tried the wells or the water mains, and the water mains just spit mud basically. Yeah. So they figured there's no water. Then the water gets turned on, or the valve gets opened, but it never gets relayed back to them. Hey, try the mains again.
At some point they realize it, and that'll come along later when we get to.
But initially, when the fire's really taking off,
they started dynamite. They weren't.
So we're gonna get that. I want to get there. Yeah. So the fire for whatever reason burns north towards Whiskey Row. It doesn't burn south.
No, the winds were blowing from the south. They were blowing south and west.
So the winds are blowing south and west. And so it's blowing.
Pardon me.
No, they're blowing
north and west.
The winds are blowing north and west, blowing the fire north towards Whiskey Row, and
actually toward the fire. The wind was actually going toward the red light district.
Towards Granite and
which was where the Union Saloon was.
Yes, exactly,
and other stuff.
So the fire is burning that way rather fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I know on the corner of Carlton and Montezuma, on the southwest corner, Goodwin and Montezuma on the southwest corner, where is the building of Colt's Grill, which we don't talk about Colt's Grill anymore.
Yeah, we do.
There was a large 3-4 story stone build, 3-story stone building.
I guess it could be 4-story when they count that cellar saloon.
Yeah. And so there's a huge building there. And what happens?
Well, they decide. I don't know if they knew what would happen if you dynamited a brick building.
Well, it's not even brick. I think it's stone.
Yeah.
When I see the photos, it looks like it's stone blocks.
Could be. I think some guys said the brick held, but I could be, the masonry stood. Yeah, you might be right. But so the OK Lodge, they tried to dynamite the OK Annex, drop the wood. The plan was, here's the other issue. When you did the dynamiting, you dropped the building and all the wood in one spot, and then you took water over the top of it and stopped it, but they didn't have water. So,
and that was an established firefighting technique of the day.
Right.
And when you're having a big town fire like that, you blow up the building, the next building that would be burned, in order to eliminate fuel, and also the blast hopefully puts out some fire.
And that was used actually twice successfully in 1883 and 1884. There were fires, and they were dynamite, and it worked.
So they decide they dynamite the OK Annex, but because there's no water, they can't put it out.
Right.
And now they're worried that somehow it's going to burn down this stone building.
Right. So it goes into the Grandview house, and they decide to dynamite it. they saw, this is kind of interesting. They saw, according to the Arizona Republican, the first report that came out was not in Prescott because the miner and the courier, they had burned down and they were wiped out. So they were trying to get back into business. But even during the fire, there was telegraphs going back and forth, and people were taking stagecoaches or whatever. Back in 1900 would have been more maybe, but they were coming to Prescott to watch the fire. And
Really?
and Jerome and Mayor, there was actually, they announced it, you get to come see the fire, come see what happened to Prescott. But the initial report was actually the 16th, came out in the Arizona Republican, and they said there was a man in the building before they started to dynamite. The firefighters saw the man in the building, and he was running around to the third floor. They yell at the guy, and they tell him, we're going to throw a ladder up to you. According to the report, he laughed maniacally and ran back into the flames. So they go, well, heck with that. They dynamited it. And what was interesting is that was never addressed in the Prescott newspaper. They didn't say, this was a false report that came out of Phoenix. They never addressed it. So I think it could have happened, and we'll show pictures of the fire, what it looked like. I think the fire was so intense that he would have been burned to ashes, and there was no way of knowing. I think it might have actually happened. A man died.
Now, and you mentioned the courier and the miner both, their shops burned down.
Gone.
Now, if I'm not wrong, the courier was in that corner building, that stone building, because I saw they have
because that picture. I think it had moved by then, but I couldn't tell you.
But
where.
the signage was still up, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this is a 3-story tower, essentially.
Yeah.
It looks like it almost looks like some kind of medieval donjon.
It acted like a cannon, is what it acted like.
So when they packed it full of dynamite and they blew it, it didn't blow out. It blew like a cannon straight
It went up. And the pharmacist, Harry Brisley, I think his name was, said the masonry stood firm, and we'll show a picture where that north wall stood. The winds were blowing northwest. So they blew it up. It was like a cannon. The embers went up to the sky and blew over to the corner of Granite and Goodwin.
On the Union Saloon.
Where the Union Saloon was.
And the red light district behind it.
Yeah. And so now it was attached. So it avoided the what we call Whiskey Row initially. So what happened was the Union Saloon went up. They dynamited it, and no telling what happened there. Everybody probably knows where Sam Hill's warehouse is. It's where the Prescott, the Western Heritage Center is now. And they had all kinds of stuff in there that was flammable. They had mining powder, they had oil products, they had
it was your one-stop mining and gunfire needs.
Ammunition, and stuff. So what happened was they blew it up. There was a guy in it, everybody was trying to save the whiskey. There was a guy named Dago Martin that went into the Union Saloon cellar and was trying to get the booze out, and they didn't know he was there. They blew it up, and he said all of a sudden the skies were lit up by
he's in the cellar, and they blew it up on top of him.
I can see him holding onto that booze though, and he was deaf for like 2 weeks, but he was going, well, I survived it, so that was a good story. So the Union Saloon lights up, and the Sam Hill's hardware was attacked from behind, and when Sam Hill's caught fire, that's when people, I should say this, I compare it to how people in California are concerned about the San Andreas Fault slipping, and then California drops into the ocean. They're waiting for that big one. The same thing was true of Prescott, except as a fire. They knew a big one was coming. Some people didn't want to believe that, but they knew it was coming. And when Sam Hill's lit up, they didn't do fireworks that year, which is interesting because it was dry, and they were actually saving up. There was going to be a Rough Riders reunion. They thought Theodore Roosevelt might come, so they saved up money for that. But people said when Sam Hill's went up, it was like a fireworks
display
show. You'd never.
Well, I mean, yeah, you have all this. You have black powder. You have dynamite. you have blasting caps, you have ammunition. Things are just going off left
Yeah.
and right. I mean, it must have been quite a show.
Yeah, it was blue streaks going up in the air.
So the Union Saloon behind Whiskey Row got blown up.
Yep.
What happened to the brothel cribs directly behind it?
They all went. I don't think they even tried to stop those.
They just burned through the brothels.
Yeah.
Now, right after the brothels was Chinatown, right?
Yeah.
What happened to Chinatown?
Nothing.
How does nothing happen to Chinatown?
Yeah, they were brilliant. So Chinatown actually went from for a point of reference today, on say halfway the block that's Granite Street over to McCormick. I always thought Chinatown ran from Gurley all the way down through Carlton and the streets below there. But Chinatown actually started midway on that block of Granite and McCormick, and they lived on the east banks of Granite Creek. They had stored water, and what they did when they saw the embers flying this way, they took that water, they soaked their blankets, their mattresses, they put them on top of their buildings, so when the embers came over, they go out.
Brilliant.
Ingenious.
Brilliant.
And we'll show pictures. You can see the entire Chinatown intact.
Wow.
There was one flag. They said the only thing, they had a flag from I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Quing, King Dynasty. They had some kind of flag, and it was so hot it just it just went out. But there's a story behind that comes with the rebuild. But Chinatown was saved. Yeah.
But the burning the burning of the brothels to the back of Whiskey Row pushed up into Sam Hills,
right?
Burned Sam Hills to the ground. Essentially, Sam Hills blew itself up
and intensified the fire.
So while this is going on, what are the business owners, both on Whiskey Row and on Gurley Street, what are the business owners doing?
Saving the booze.
Saving the booze. What else? I mean, yeah.
That's their inventory. That's how they made their money. They were pulling out, furniture, stuff like that. But there was one guy, I think it was the Cobweb Hall, J.J. Hawkins, just said, "Boys, come and get it. It's free. Just come and get it. I'm not going to be able to do anything with it." And they did. There was a lot of looting that went on too.
Really?
Yeah.
And I would not peg 1900 Prescott for looting.
Mankind doesn't change in some ways.
Mankind does not change.
Yep. And they were running when they loot. Well, there's a story. Bert Lee, after he was the guy in the OK Lodging House, when he realized this fire was he couldn't stop it. He went to the Sam Hills and he was grabbing rifles. And he said he was in there one time when they did Dynamite at the Union Saloon right behind there, and it shook the rafters so much stuff was dropping. But he took a load of rifles, laid them on the plaza, saw people grabbing them and looting and running across the Union Street and out of town. And he started thinking, I'm not bringing this stuff out so people could just take them. Then he thought about his store. It was not owned by him. It was owned by a guy named one of the Doherty brothers. I forget the first name of it, but he worked at the OK store. He started getting concerned about his grocery store. So he took his rifle and sat on the top of the OK store from the rest of the fire just to make sure no one was looting his place. And the OK store did survive.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, okay. Now, and the reason I brought up what were the store owners doing, what were the merchants doing, is because there's the famous story that the palace tells of the bar being taken out of the palace. And I know for a fact that many businesses were taking out their wares or their furniture, and they were putting it on the plaza across from their business.
Right, and we will show that. It's a lot of things we'll show. There's a lot of, I call it the pictorial presentation of the Great Fire. We're going to show a lot of photos there, but yeah.
So you have a lot going on. You have people fighting the fire, either the fire devastating the town.
Mm-hmm.
You have people trying to fight the fire. You have people trying to save their businesses and pull out their merchandise. You have people stealing their merchandise as they're pulling it out. You have people literally coming into town on wagons and stagecoaches to watch Prescott burn.
Yeah, they were.
Now
or to see it.
There's an old story, and you can please debunk it if it's true, but supposedly they pulled out a piano and some guy was playing piano.
That was true.
That was true.
That was true. That was actually told by several different witnesses. One guy was a Rough Rider. I think his name was Green something. I can't remember his name.
And he was playing "It's a Hot Time in the Town Tonight."
So the piano player was named Ed Wilson. They brought the piano out, and apparently the palace had a soprano singer, a female singer in there, and he started hammering out, "It's a hot time and the old time," and it caught on. The whole town was singing it. They
They were all drunk, weren't they?
Well, I think they were probably drunk too. They would have lit up if they would have got near the fire.
Yeah.
But there's one report where when it started to die down, you could hear people all the way across to Granite Street singing along. It's a hot time in the old town tonight.
That's
So
crazy.
that is a true
That's
story.
crazy. So the fire hits Sam Hills.
Mhm.
Sam Hills explodes in a fiery disaster.
Mhm.
The
That's
fi-
where the momentum really caught on.
that's where
Yeah.
everybody realizes we're done.
And it changed the weather, the wind pattern, and everything.
Really, the fire was hot enough to
Yeah.
change the wind pattern.
That's the report. Yeah.
And so the fire continues to burn north on Whiskey Row. It hits the cabinet. It hits the palace.
And they're dynamiting along the way.
Tell me how this is playing out.
So yeah, they were, I know they dynamited the cabinet because Barney Smith said something when the guy ran in, and I forget his name, but Barney Smith was the co-owner of the cabinet, and the guy came in with dynamite, and he goes, "What are you gonna do with that?" And he goes, "I'm gonna blow up your place." He goes, "Well, heck, where are you gonna put it?" And they put it in the icebox. So Barney Smith and they got out there, and they blew up the cabinet, but next in line was the palace.
Well, there was the
brick.
bathhouse in the middle.
Yeah,
Was the cabinet wood or was the cabinet
the cabinet was wood,
the cabinet
as was
wood,
the bathhouse. Yeah.
as was the bathhouse. They were both wood. So as a reminder, we always mention this, but for a reminder, at this point in time, because things change constantly, but at this point in time, the cabinet was on the lot that's essentially the southern third
Yep.
of the modern palace,
Right.
which is, I think it's Kickapoo Express right now.
It's
I'm not 100%
one of
sure.
those. I forget.
There's a
which
little
side is
boutique
which.
shop
Yeah.
that a part of the main stone building that's south of the bar room.
Right.
And then where the modern bar room is now was the bathhouse.
Bathhouse.
And then the shop that's on the north side of the building, of the stone building, what the original
Right.
palace where it
Right.
was at that time.
Yeah. So it was 25 by 100 some feet. And yeah, that lot there goes today. I think Kickapoo Express is there, but we're going to look it up later and
Yeah.
figure it out. But it's where the Bill Owens room is
Yeah.
in the palace today. So
So they blow up the cabinet,
Cabinet.
and that's going to be, I think I saw that quote and I laughed. That's going to do a number on the ice chest or something. You said,
yeah, there's something like that. Yeah.
yeah. What are you going to do? We're going to blow up your ice chest. Well, that's not going to do the ice chest any good.
Yeah, they gave him some kind of language like, I don't know, that's be damn bad for the captain. They use language like that. I don't know
Yeah.
if they talked like that, but
So they blow up. Did they blow up the bathhouse? You said, or did it just burn?
as far as I know, the cabinet was blown up.
And the
it
bathhouse?
wasn't real clear. They were dynamiting along the way. They could hear it from miles and miles and miles. People from Groom Creek could hear
Really?
and see the fire. There's reports where they looked down into town. They go, well, they knew the Prescott was burning. It was going down.
And so it gets to the palace, and the palace is not blown up. The palace burns.
The palace, they were hoping the brick and stone, the iron would stop the fire. That was the hope. So they didn't blow it up. And maybe they learned from the Grandview house.
Yeah.
Don't blow it. Don't
blow up stone buildings.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the fireproof palace is not fireproof.
Yeah.
And it burns down to a quarter of a wall, basically.
Yeah, and the front, some of it held. And the very front wall of the palace, you could see the signage.
It says Alice.
This is Alice.
It says Alice on it. There's not much left of it. There's no saloon. There's no P.
Yeah.
But Alice is there.
Alice's restaurant.
So the fireproof palace burns basically to the ground. The fire continues north.
Are you skipping the one part? Are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, what part are we talking about here?
The bar.
Oh no, I actually.
That's
so
okay. We don't have to talk about it.
Let's talk about that bar
Okay.
briefly,
No,
because there's a lot to the bar. The palace bar is a story. Is an episode in itself.
listeners, don't tell the story that we're going to tell because it was the when I started researching, that was my favorite legend of people pulling out the bar and they were drinking and and that did happen. They did pull a bar out and they were drinking, but the legend goes that the bar in the palace today is that bar. And darn it, it's well, you know the story. I was actually going to give a lecture, and the lecture was the truth about the palace bar. 3 days before that lecture, I discover looking for something else. A friend of mine named Mike Haley wanted to figure out how the towels were hanging down, and I took a close up of both bars. There's one picture, one photograph of the palace interior before the fire, only one. And if you look at it real close, it looks like the same bar that's in there today. I mean, not real close, but just briefly. And then, there's a bunch of pictures, photographs after the fire. And I had already written that it's true. But I did a close up of the two bars, and all of a sudden I noticed,
The facing is different.
it's not the same bar. And I about panicked. And Wendy, my wife, was in the shower, and she got out, and I go, take a look at this. And she looked at it and didn't say a word. But I think I called you the next
You
day. I
did.
go, it's not true.
And no, we went around and around and around, and can we definitively date the pre-fire photo, because the bar was replaced in '96 because they had
97.
an internal fire
Yeah.
there, and there's still wiggle room. It's not definitive,
Very small wiggle room, yeah.
very small, but there is wiggle room. But yeah, there's a strong possibility that the current bar is not the pre-fire bar.
So the reason I think that is there's one picture of the interior of the palace before the fire. And like you said, there was a fire inside the palace in 1897.
Oh, 97, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 97. I think it was November. And within a month, they had a new bar in there. But they described it having a dining room in the back and this and that. And the description matched that
Yeah.
photograph.
So the problem is that there are potentially three different bars between 1896, 97, and 1901.
Yeah.
There are possibly three different bars, and it's hard to say that early photo which bar are we looking at? The pre-96 bar, the post-96
Yeah.
bar. So it's really hard to say.
But the description match, like I
Yeah.
said, it matches the
Yeah.
dining room. But actually, there's four. So the palace was on Goodwin Street. It burned down. They saved the bar. They rebuild on Montezuma Street, but they build a new one. And this is what got me when I was researching. I think, not the same bar. They put a solid walnut bar in the palace. Well, the palace interior burned up in 1897, and they replaced it. And that's the photograph. And pretty much, and other historians have said the same thing. But that bar was pulled out because you could see it in the temporary.
And we'll get
palace.
there. We'll get to that one.
Yeah.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. So the palace burns to the ground. The bar is saved.
Mhm.
The fire continues going north. It gets to the fireproof, the self-described in a newspaper article or newspaper advertisement, the fireproof Hotel of the Burke.
We're all safe now. It's going to hit.
It's going to end. The fire's over. It's going to hit the fireproof Burke Hotel and bash like waves on the rocks.
And the fire was so intense that I saw reports that it went down within 10 minutes. They said,
Really?
one guy said it was roaring like a smelter, and we'll show you the most extraordinary photograph that I discovered late in the process of writing this book. It looked like a atomic bomb hit it.
No,
It
I've
looked like a
seen that
nuclear
photo,
blast.
and
Yeah.
it's obviously a black and white photo. Obviously, it's taken with 1900 technology, but it looks like a nuclear bomb
Yeah.
has gone off. It's just this fireball
And
that's blinding everything
It's hard
else.
to say how far away he was because they had reports that this stuff was melting, getting near the fire. But yeah, extraordinary photo.
So the fire lasted for 5 hours roughly.
Yeah.
So 5 hours. So it started like at 9 or 10 that night. So we're talking about 3 in the morning ish. It finally
Yeah.
ends.
I think around 10:15, 10:30 it started. Yeah.
So somewhere in the 3 o'clock hour, 4 o'clock hour,
Right.
it ends.
Yeah.
Then dawn hits, and finally everybody. Oh, we're not even there yet because
Yeah.
it jumps over to Gurley Street. I'm
It
sorry,
jumps-
I got way ahead of myself.
Yeah. We got to burn up some other places.
we got to burn a whole other block at least.
And that Gurley Street section faces the plaza, you'll see, was a lot of brick. On Montezuma Street, there was Sam Hills. There was like 3 or 4. Of course, the Burke Hotel was but now the question, when you'll see what happens, it was so intense that it crossed Gurley Street Gurley Street, and there was a place there on the corner, the northwest corner called Kelly and Stevens, and it was in part a what do you call it? Was the stationery store. They had a lot of paper products. It went up, and the fire, they're thinking just going straight. But what happened? The fire was so intense. There was a barn behind the Bashford, whatever the Bashford Burmester place was at the time. There was a barn there, storage, and the heat just made it catch on fire. So Gurley Street was attacked from behind, just like
Montezuma.
the Whiskey Row, Montezuma Street. So it enters the Bashford Burmester building there.
And the entire 100 block of Montezuma Street, of Gurley Street is wiped out.
Gurley to Willis.
From Montezuma to Cortez, that entire block
Right.
is of Gurley is wiped out.
There's a great story in between there. At least I think it's a great story. We said that they were pulling out liquor, and the main liquor place was on Gurley, kind of right in the middle, owned by a guy named Jake Marks. And it was coming toward Jake Marks's place of establishment. And somebody says to Jake, goes, "Hey, Jake, don't you think we ought to pull the liquor out?" And he goes, "Nah, we just start drinking and then we never get this fire out." So, but that was a mistake because, liquor is very flammable. And they said, now we got fireworks. These blue streaks were going up. It was just, if it wasn't so terrible, it was beautiful in some ways.
Is that what they said?
That's what some people, it wasn't so terrible. It was just an amazing thing to see.
Wow. So Gurley Street goes up, but it kind of peters out then, doesn't it? At the end of Gurley Street?
No,
Gurley and Cortez?
It's burning hot, and it hits a Harry Brisley's drugstore. And Harry Brisley he actually saw the whole fire from the beginning. We missed one part way back where there was a second effort to put the fire out. There was a well on the corner of the plaza on the southwest corner, and I forget what the name of that hose company was, but the Tufts, they dropped the hose in there, and they started the hose, and it just like 10 feet came out and nothing. But again, at that time, water was in the mains. They just didn't know it. But the well was separate from these mains.
And for those of you who don't know, Prescott still has those, at least one of those wells on the plaza.
I think so.
At one point, there was each corner had a well.
Right.
It went down like 30 feet to water. And on the southern half of the Cortez Street side of the plaza now, there's a little monument for the well, and you can actually it's a grate you could look down, and normally you will see water down there at about the 30-foot mark.
Yeah.
But obviously with a drought they just couldn't get anything out of it.
It was dry, and when they heard the siren, everybody ran up to see what was going on, and they got to that corner and they're watching, hoping they're going to put the fire out from this well. I call it the Well of Hope, but they didn't. That's when they started the dynamite. They go,
so how does it end?
Trouble. So it turns. Before we get to that, it turns to the left, hits Harry Brisley's drugstore was on the corner of Gurley and Montezuma, and he followed the whole fire the whole way.
Montezuma or Cortez?
What did I say?
You said Montezuma.
So Harry Brisley's drugstore was on the corner of Gurley and Cortez.
That's what I thought.
And he had a soda fountain that was on the plaza by now. He's pulling stuff out. Well, on the corner, now we're talking about the southeast corner of Gurley and Cortez. There was a bank. And there's still that building there, but they were doing some work on it, and there was a pile of lumber sitting in that corner, and it started smoldering.
Just from the heat.
Just from the heat. It was
wow.
And he sees that Harry Brisley. He grabs his soda fountain. He sprays it down with his 7-Up. Here's some Sprite for you, and it worked. So he saved that part.
Safety tip, boys and girls. If you're, in case of a fire, use Sprite or 7-Up.
Yeah, Mountain Dew
Don't
works
do that.
too. Yeah.
Don't do that. But apparently, it might work.
Yeah, it worked. It worked there. So it turns left. And
when you say turns left, you mean you go north Cortez.
Yeah, North Cortez. Yeah. And actually, here's my favorite. We got time. Here's my favorite part of almost as much as the bars being pulled out. So across the street on East Cortez, above Gurley, that was called Office Row. And that was something Prescott was proud of. It was a business area there. On the left were plenty of saloons. And they were worried about East Prescott catching fire now. But by then, on the corner, they had discovered there was water. So this bucket brigade formed, and they were throwing water on East Cortez side of Office Row. and these boys came along to help, and they told them, go up on top, and we're going to hand you these boys were nimble-footed. Go to the top. We'll hand you these buckets of water, and wherever you see an ember, hit it or kick it off or something. So that happened. And
how old were these kids?
We don't know how old they were. They just said they were, young boys. But I call them the young boys heroes of Prescott, because they were credited for saving East Prescott.
We're saying 8 to 12 years old, probably.
Yeah. The story is too afterwards. everybody was celebrating with free beer, and the boys wanted in, but they said, "No, boys, you're too young, going home." Crap.
You're old enough to stand on the roof and fight fires, but you can't have a beer.
Yeah, that story. But the fire keeps going. They dynamite, but you can see. We'll show a picture that there's a hose cart on Cortez. So you can see they were using water at that point, and I think that's what actually put the fire out at the end. They actually found water, and it went to Willis. There was a report that it went past Willis, but didn't. You can look at the photographs and see trees.
Yeah, we put up. There's going to be put up on here the actual plat map and the destruction zone.
Yeah.
So the next morning, the sun comes up and everybody can see the extent of the damage, and it's devastating.
Yeah, I mean, there's the talk about how the great spirit of Prescott, the frontier spirit of Prescott, the Prescottonians, was such that they just didn't give up, and they were always happy. But there was a point where they looked at it and went, "Oh my God," and it had to be, and there was still smoldering. So, all the lights were out, electricity was out. They still were able to telegraph because they kept moving the telegraph equipment over. It actually moved it over to Goldwater's on the corner of, it was in the Hotel Burke, and it was moved over to Goldwater's on the corner of Goodwin
Union.
and right over there.
Yeah, Union and Cortez.
Yeah, and they were sending messages out. So they outside towns like Jerome and Mayer and Phoenix were getting reports of the fire as it went,
as it happened.
Yeah.
Wow. So going to try. We have 9 minutes. I want to try to wrap this up in roughly 9 minutes.
We did pretty good.
We did really good.
Yeah.
So the fire, the next day, people see the smoldering ruins. They're putting out the last of it, and they start to take stock.
Yeah.
And there's some great photos we're going to put up that we show business owners basically building either tent structures or temporary wood structures on the plaza side of Whiskey Row and the plaza side of Gurley Street, where they're basically doing makeshift buildings.
And there was one report that said there were people the very next day bringing lumber out to the plaza. There was never any question. The newspapers, the Miner and the Courier, once they got going again, they weren't going around going, what'd you see during the fire? They were looking for reports. They were asking people, are you going to rebuild? Are we going to keep going with this
even
dream?
The paper was looking forward, not looking back.
Yeah. And,
everybody's focus is we're going to rebuild. Prescott shall rise again.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And everyone, in my book is a list what they were saying. Every person to a person said, "No, we're going to rebuild." This is even Jake Marks goes, "I have a slight setback. This is nothing big.
a slight setback."
Yeah, we've seen worse.
60 buildings, 6 blocks. 1.5 million in damage.
We've seen worse.
It's a speed bump. We'll get back.
That was the main concern.
But they did.
Yeah,
they really did.
Oh yeah, I mean immediately. And I want to say this too. How I got all these stories that we talked about, they didn't come out right away. So every 5, 10, 15 increments of 5 years, all the way up to 75 years after the fire, they would have a reunion. Witnesses would get together, tell their stories. Once I figured that out, I just started going to the 1905, 1910, and these stories came out from that. And that's where I got the stories. Like the Courier and the Miner, they weren't looking for stories. What happened during the fire? They would go, what do we do next?
Everybody knew what happened. Everybody was there.
Yeah, I mean, even the point where they find the guy who started the fire and they put that on the third page.
Yeah,
that shows you what their mindset was.
Yeah. So obviously, like I said, there's basically a tent city on the plaza. They're building, I don't know, sheds to run their businesses out of if they can afford it.
Tents and shacks. Yeah.
And were they paying kids like 10 cents a brick or something to collect bricks?
It was, you're thinking of the Hotel Burke. like I said, those bricks survived. That's why, this whole thing about this new hotel, I go, leave the bricks alone. They've earned their right to stay there. But yeah, and the very front cover of the book shows those boys. It was $1.50 for 1,000 bricks.
$1.50 for 1,000 bricks.
So the boys would be stealing bricks from the pile, other than they get in fights and everything, and they had to break those up and everything. But
even the kids were involved in rebuilding Prescott.
So
at $1.50 per 1,000.
And a lot of the bricks you see at Hotel St. Michael, those boys stacked those bricks and they went back into hotels. What became Hotel St. Michael, which was like 8 years later. They changed the name.
So they harvest the bricks. They immediately, like you said, they're bringing in lumber. They're bringing in lumber. They're clearing debris. Which there was a heck of a lot of debris. I mean, the pictures will be shown up, and it looked like Hiroshima. It looked like
the dynamite. The dynamite was tin and wood.
So they clear out the debris and they start building immediately.
Immediately.
Yep. How long before Whiskey Row looked the way we know it now?
Probably the middle of 1902. That's when 1901 July. That's when the Palace reopened.
So about a year. It took a year for them to go from total devastation to the Whiskey Row we know and love today.
And the story with the Palace is that the business owners, Robert Brow of the Palace, and then it was Ben Belcher and Barney Smith of the Cabinet. They pooled their money, bought the 3 lots from a guy named Hugh McCrum, who we just had a great presentation about from Mike Mihalovich. But they bought those 3 lots for a good price, and what we see today, the Palace, is the result of that.
Yeah. So the owner, the owner of the Cabinet and the owner of the Palace bought the lots, and then they merged and they created the building that we all love today.
And that's why we to get the true date of the Palace, we got to remember it's also the Cabinet. They were at one point going to call it the National Saloon, and but it looks like a Palace was the proper name. But past researchers got fixated on the Palace word, and they didn't realize that the Cabinet was just as much the Palace as the Palace was.
One of the early possible names was the Cabinet Palace with a hyphen.
Palace, it was Palace Cabinet, I think.
Palace Cabinet?
Yeah, something like that. And then that's why you date the true origin date back to 1874. 1877 is false. There was 3 palaces altogether in Prescott,
and one of them was founded in 1877.
And that was on Gurley Street, but it has nothing to do whatsoever.
But our palace that we know and love really dates to the Cabinet in 1874. Yeah. So it's even older than we give it credit for. This has been fascinating. The story of the fire is a story of perseverance. It's a story of people, and some of it's funny, some of it's tragic. Like you said, other than the one claim that one guy may have died in the stone building that was blown up on the corner, which was never mentioned again.
There was a guy named Ed Harold that got injured, and he recovered, but he was. Some historians thought he was the guy that started the fire. Hey, I got one more story though.
Okay.
I can't not tell this one.
All right.
So, the red light district was wiped out. All these businesses were setting up on the plaza. Well, the girls from Granite Street thought, well, we'll just set up a place.
They'll set up their own place on the plaza?
On the plaza, right next to the barber shop. And the council members go, no, you're not going to do that. Go down below Goodwin, and you could do it there. But they're ready to set up shop and start business right there on the plaza.
Those enterprising young women.
business girls.
Yeah. Hey, if everybody else gets to set up a shop on the plaza, how come they can't set up on the plaza?
How can I not tell that?
That's classic.
Typical Prescott.
We are at 58 minutes and 30 seconds exactly. So we pulled it off.
We did.
We got this thing through in 1 hour.
I didn't think we could do it.
I was really curious.
Yep.
Everybody, thank you. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. If you didn't enjoy us, tune in next time. We may get better. And if you do enjoy it, please like, subscribe, follow us, and keep watching. We definitely want to keep entertaining you and informing you as well. Thank you all for the Whiskey Row History Show. Bradley G. Courtney, author and historian, and myself, Constable Ron Williams, the Yavapai County Constable for the Prescott Precinct. Thank you.
Thank you.